What if the absolute best training for modern leadership, I'm talking emotional intelligence, executive presence, all that stuff, what if it didn't come from a corporate seminar? What if it came from a place that's been doing it for over a century? Well, we're about to uncover a hidden source of these skills, and trust me, its origins are probably going to surprise you.
Okay, so it all kicked off with one simple question. C-suite advisor L. Michelle Smith had just given a keynote that completely brought the house down, and afterward, someone came up to her and asked, "Where did you learn to speak like that?" Her first instinct was to say, corporate media training, but she stopped because she knew that just wasn't the whole truth. The real answer was buried way deeper in her past.
That's right. The answer was the historic Black church. She realized the entire foundation of her public speaking, her presence, her ability to connect with a room, it was all forged when she was just 14 years old, when she was, as she puts it, voluntold to teach Sunday school to a room full of adults. And that one single revelation, it sparked a years-long journey to figure out if her experience was just a one-off or if it was part of a much, much bigger, untold story.
And it turns out her story wasn't an isolated incident at all. What she uncovered was this widespread but totally undocumented phenomenon. This became the first major discovery, a truly unexpected origin for leadership, a powerful incubator that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
Smith came up with the name for this hidden incubator, the original business school. I mean, it's the perfect term for it. It describes a place where generations of leaders mastered all the skills that modern companies prize so highly today. We're talking empathy, community building, adaptability. But they didn't learn it in a boardroom. They learned it from the pews and the pulpit.
Now, when you hear a name like the original business school, it's easy to think, okay, that's a cool metaphor. But here's the thing. It is so much more than that. This whole idea is actually backed by some pretty serious data.
Get this. In a survey of 155 high-performing Black executives, a staggering 76% credited their earliest leadership development directly to their experiences growing up in the Black church. That is not a coincidence, folks. That is a pattern. It's proof that this kind of leadership excellence was being systematically cultivated long before corporate America even came up with the buzzwords for it.
And let's be absolutely crystal clear about what we're talking about here. The book that came from all this research, Call and Response, it's a scientific and cultural look at leadership. It's not a religious text. It's about how a very specific cultural environment became a masterclass in human-centered leadership. And its lessons are useful for absolutely everyone, no matter what their background is. So the big question is, how does this actually work, right? How does a cultural environment translate into these concrete science-backed leadership skills? Well, that's the next piece of the puzzle, connecting the soul of these practices to the actual science of human behavior. And this is where it gets really fascinating.
The book takes these cultural practices that were, for a long time, just dismissed as emotion, and it anchors them in real neuroscience and psychology. So, for example, the harmony in a gospel choir is not just beautiful music, it's a real-time exercise in what scientists call neural coupling and emotional contagion, which is the very basis for social intelligence. The act of call and response itself literally builds a group's collective intelligence and synchrony.
And the connections just keep going. A dynamic performance from the pulpit, that's a masterclass in what we now call executive presence and audience attunement. And all those Easter speeches that countless kids had to give, that's basically foundational confidence and performance training. It just goes to show you that science is often just putting a name on what culture has been building for centuries.
And hey, the results really speak for themselves. This is not just theory. Take Carla Harris. She's the vice chair at Morgan Stanley. The skills she honed in her gospel choir, we're talking teamwork, listening, intuition, they didn't just take her to the boardroom. They took her to Carnegie Hall for a decade of sold-out shows.
See, what Carla Harris learned in that choir is exactly what corporations now call situational awareness. It's that uncanny ability to read a room, to regulate your own energy, and to elevate the people around you. It's the absolute core of a high-performing team, learned not from some manual, but through harmony.
So, we've got the history, and we've got the science. But how do we actually apply these incredible lessons today? Well, to make it actionable, the book organizes everything into a modern system called the Call and Response Leadership Revival Framework.
And the framework is just beautifully logical. It moves outward in 3 concentric circles. Everything starts with self. That's the inner work, building your purpose and resilience. From there, it extends out to relationships, focusing on collaboration and community. And then finally, it emerges into impact, which is the world work, driving change and creating a lasting legacy.
Within those 3 areas, you'll find 10 core leadership lessons. They start with that internal work, building faith, purpose, resilience, and perseverance. Then they move outward to the community, focusing on things like collaboration and accountability. And finally, they culminate in creating change through creativity, innovation, and even economic empowerment. It is a truly holistic blueprint for leadership that has some serious heart.
But you know, this story also comes with a real sense of urgency, because the very ecosystem that created this unique leadership pipeline, it's now at risk.
As congregations modernize and attendance patterns shift, especially after the pandemic, that pipeline from the pews to the C-suite is thinning out. So the central question the book poses is a really provocative one. Can this invaluable leadership incubator actually be preserved for future generations?
And the proposed solution is a dual call to action. First, it's a call for corporations and universities to be intentional about building these 10 core competencies into their programs. And second, it's a call for the historic Black church to revive and reactivate its powerful role as the original business school. Look, this isn't about nostalgia. It's about strategic reconstruction.
You know, maybe the book's co-producer, the one and only Viola Davis, puts it best. She says this work is both a tribute and a roadmap. It honors a legacy of leadership that was forged in community, and it offers a bold, science-backed vision for where we all must go next, to cultivate leaders who lead not just with strategy, but with evidence, with empathy, and with heart.